Do you feel lost seeking a purpose and wonder if it is ever possible to find that inner direction and confidence? I have spent decades studying the work of Carl Jung, and I'm delighted to share how his timeless insights can illuminate your quest for purpose. With his most compelling discovery about the shadow and the anima in this video, you will begin to see the hidden map of your personal mythology. Many of us feel a gnawing emptiness in the quiet moments after work or at night when the mind drifts to what could be reached if we abandoned distraction and pursued a deeper meaning. Jung's clinical observations teach that this emptiness is a signal of the unconscious yearning for integration of those parts of ourselves that are still unknown or out of harmony with our daily roles. I have reviewed countless patient notebooks and found that the sense of purposelessness frequently emerges from a fragmented psyche, where the everyday ego masks a deeper narrative that is begging to surface. Empathy is at the core of Jung's approach because he recognizes that the psyche is constantly negotiating between what it needs to embrace and what it fears to confront. If we view this struggle through his lens, we see that the tug of purpose is not a simple life decision, but a continuing dialogue between conscious desire and the silent currents within. When we ignore the unconscious voice, the desire for purpose becomes an endless vacuum of frustration and a justification for disengagement from the world. That is why the necessity of understanding this dialogue cannot be overstated in our modern, fast-paced society. He emphasized that the unconscious holds a reservoir of symbols and dreams that act as a compass. When we learn to recognize these symbols in our personal narratives, the path to purpose becomes clearer. Those who have accepted this method have reported that their day-to-day decisions feel more aligned with a broader sense of mission. In my research of Jung's work, the concept that stands out most clearly for finding purpose is the process of individuation, the gradual integration of the conscious and unconscious parts of the psyche into a harmonious whole. The core of this process is the recognition and acceptance of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we have repressed or denied. When I read the journal entries of a young woman who later became a successful architect, she described a recurring dream of a blackened tree that whispered warnings of failure. Jung's clinical observations taught that such images are not random, but serve as a call to bring hidden fears into light. By naming that fear as part of the shadow, she was able to transform that anxiety into creative energy, and she incorporated the metaphor of the tree into her architectural design, allowing the project to move forward with a new sense of purpose. This is a concrete example of how the shadow works as a catalyst rather than a burden. The second major concept is the anima or animus, the contrasexual archetype that provides balance and insight into the opposite gender experience. Encountering the anima invites us to look beyond our self-identity and to honor the parts of us that are further removed from the external label. A patient who struggled with a sense of entitlement found that meditating upon the image of a compassionate mother allowed him to see his own shortcomings and appreciate a different perspective on his career ambition, recognizing his role as a nurturer rather than a dominator. The third key element is the self, the central archetype that unifies the inner and outer realms. Jung emphasized that the self is not separate from the ego, but a higher unity manifested in symbols such as the mandala, which represents wholeness. When I invite viewers to reflect upon the patterns that repeat in their lives, I find that they often begin to see how the self is calling them towards a unique mission that integrates all parts of their experience. One surprising revelation from Jung is that the unconscious is not merely a repository of shadows, but also a source of divine creativity. In the case of a man in mid-40s who had lost his sense of calling after a divorce, he discovered through correspondence analysis and dream work that his unconscious had been guiding him toward art therapy as a vocation. He resumed his studies in fine arts and now paints murals that heal community spaces. This contradicts the common belief that career paths are merely matter-of-fact and linear. Jung's theory recognizes that there is an archetypal yearning that must be answered, and that any attempt to ignore it will result in a repetitive cycle of dissatisfaction. He also demonstrates that the unconscious can be accessed through a variety of modern techniques, such as active imagination, journaling, and creative expression, each of which provides a direct channel to the symbolic language of the psyche. By learning to interpret these symbols and dialogues, we gain clarity about our personal narrative and see where our deepest intentions lie. Therefore, by applying these key discoveries, the quest for purpose becomes grounded in an intimate conversation with your own unconscious, rather than a futile search for external proof. It is this transformative insight that Jung invites us to explore, and it has been the cornerstone of the programs that I have developed for helping individuals discover lasting meaning. When we respect the unconscious as a partner in this journey, the search for purpose no longer feels like a burden, but a marketing of our authentic. To put these ideas into practice, you can start with the simple ritual of a 10-minute nightly reflection, where you write down any recurring images or feelings you experience that day. Notice the pattern across weeks, whether a certain image arises repeatedly, and ask yourself what it might be trying to tell you about a hidden desire or fear. Then carry out a guided active imagination exercise in which you welcome the image into conversation. Imagine speaking to a silent tree or to that compassionate mother. Listen to its reply and write it down. Finally, reflect on the interplay between these images and the real-world tasks you face. What opportunities do they highlight? What projects could you align with those deeper themes? Over the course of a few months, this combination will allow you to map your inner landscape, sharpen the sense of direction that you need, and provide a practical compass that points toward your true purpose. I have seen this method transform students, entrepreneurs, and caregivers, turning vague, faint hope into a concrete plan of action driven by the unconscious's own guidance. Remember, the unconscious is not a source of confusion, but a signpost pointing toward that unique contribution you were born to make. Remember, Jung reminds us that life is a gradual unveiling, and your purpose will surface as you remain patient with the inner conversation. If you found this insightful, like, comment, and subscribe. And tomorrow we will explore how your deeper understanding of archetypes can improve your relationships. Do not miss it.